Question 1. The evaluation methodology shows that a prospective student who has diligently prepared for the Akita Prefectural University entrance examination has encountered an unforeseen personal emergency immediately prior to the scheduled examination date. The student contacts the admissions office requesting a postponement of their examination to a later date, citing the emergency. Based on the Akita Prefectural University's entrance exam regulations, which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the university admissions office? Option A. Grant the student an immediate postponement of their examination to a mutually agreed upon date, allowing them to take the exam at a later time. Option B. Advise the student to withdraw their application and reapply for the next academic year, as no exceptions can be made to the examination schedule. Option C. Suggest the student take the examination with other candidates at a later scheduled date, without confirming if this is an official university procedure. Option D. Inform the student that the examination schedule is fixed and cannot be altered for individual circumstances, directing them to review the official university entrance examination guidelines for any provisions regarding exceptional circumstances. Correct answer is D. Inform the student that the examination schedule is fixed and cannot be altered for individual circumstances, directing them to review the official university entrance examination guidelines for any provisions regarding exceptional circumstances. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's academic integrity policies and the student's request for leniency based on personal circumstances. The university entrance exam framework, as stipulated by Akita Prefectural University's regulations, prioritizes objective assessment of a candidate's academic preparedness. The challenge lies in balancing the need for fair and consistent application of examination rules with empathy towards individual student situations, ensuring that any deviation from standard procedure does not compromise the integrity of the admissions process. Careful judgment is required to uphold the university standards while considering the nuances of the student's situation. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the established examination regulations of Akita Prefectural University. This means that the student's request for special consideration outside of the officially defined procedures for exceptional circumstances, if any are outlined in the university's entrance exam guidelines, cannot be granted. The university's entrance exam framework is designed to ensure a level playing field for all applicants, and any deviation, even for seemingly valid personal reasons, could be perceived as preferential treatment, thereby undermining the fairness and credibility of the entire admissions process. The regulatory framework for university entrance exams in Japan, and specifically at Akita Prefectural University, emphasizes objective evaluation and adherence to published rules. Therefore, the only ethically and regulatorily sound approach is to inform the student of the established procedures and the inability to grant their request outside of those parameters. An incorrect approach would be to grant the student an extension or alternative examination format without explicit authorization within the university's official entrance exam guidelines. This failure stems from a disregard for the established regulatory framework. Such an action would violate the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants, as other students would not have been afforded the same privilege. It also risks setting a precedent for future applicants, potentially leading to a breakdown in the standardized examination process. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the student's request outright without acknowledging their situation or explaining the university's adherence to its regulations. While adhering to regulations is paramount, a complete lack of empathy or explanation can be seen as unprofessional and may not fully align with the broader ethical considerations of an educational institution. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant university regulations and policies governing entrance examinations. When faced with a request that deviates from these established norms, the professional should first consult the official documentation. If the situation is not covered by existing provisions, the next step is to seek guidance from the appropriate administrative body within the university responsible for admissions. The decision should always be based on the established rules and their consistent application, ensuring fairness and integrity. Communication with the applicant should be clear, respectful, and informative, explaining the rationale behind the decision based on the university's regulatory framework. Question 2. Performance analysis shows a candidate in the Akita Prefectural University entrance examination exhibiting behavior that strongly suggests they are attempting to access unauthorized information from a hidden device. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the invigilator, strictly adhering to the Akita Prefectural University entrance exam regulations? Option A. Ignore the behavior, assuming it is a misunderstanding, to avoid disrupting the examination environment and potentially causing distress to the candidate. Option B. Immediately stop the candidate and confiscate their belongings, announcing the suspicion to the entire examination hall to deter others. Option C. Approach the candidate directly and ask them to reveal the source of the information they are accessing, without involving any official channels. Option D. Discreetly observe the candidate for further evidence, and, if confirmed, immediately report the suspected irregularity to the chief invigilator or designated examination authority, according to university protocol. The correct answer is D. Discreetly observe the candidate for further evidence, and, if confirmed, immediately report the suspected irregularity to the chief invigilator or designated examination authority, according to university protocol. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate a situation where academic integrity might be compromised due to external pressures, while simultaneously adhering to the specific academic regulations and ethical guidelines of Akita Prefectural University. The university's entrance exam framework, which is the sole governing authority for this question, likely emphasizes fairness, honesty, and the accurate assessment of a candidate's knowledge and abilities. The challenge lies in identifying and upholding these principles when faced with a potential breach. The correct approach involves recognizing the potential for unfair advantage and acting in a manner that preserves the integrity of the examination process, as defined by Akita Prefectural University's regulations. This means prioritizing the principles of academic honesty and equitable assessment. The specific regulatory framework for Akita Prefectural University entrance exams would dictate the procedures for reporting suspected irregularities and the consequences for those found to have violated them. Adhering to these established protocols ensures that the examination remains a fair measure of each candidate's merit. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed behavior. This failure stems from a disregard for the university's commitment to academic integrity, which is a cornerstone of any educational institution's entrance process. By not acting, one implicitly condones potential cheating, undermining the fairness of the exam for all other candidates. Another incorrect approach would be to directly confront the individual during the exam without following established university procedures. This could lead to disruption, create an uncomfortable environment, and potentially escalate the situation without proper oversight, violating the structured and regulated nature of an official examination. A third incorrect approach would be to report the suspicion to an unauthorized party or in an informal manner. This bypasses the established channels for addressing academic misconduct, which are designed to ensure a fair and thorough investigation according to the university's specific rules. Professionals in such situation should employ a decision-making process that prioritizes adherence to established rules and ethical conduct. This involves 1. Identifying the potential violation of academic integrity. 2. Recalling and applying the specific regulations of Akita Prefectural University regarding examination conduct and reporting procedures. 3. Following the prescribed reporting mechanism, which typically involves informing the invigilator or examination supervisor. 4. Allowing the designated authorities to investigate and act according to the university's established disciplinary framework. This systematic approach ensures that actions are both ethical and compliant with the governing regulations. Question 3. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential for academic dishonesty during the Akita Prefectural University entrance examination. A proctor observes a candidate discreetly looking at their wrist multiple times during the exam, which is unusual behavior given the exam's strict no-device policy. The proctor suspects the candidate might be using a hidden electronic device. What is the most appropriate course of action for the proctor to uphold the integrity of the examination process according to the university's guidelines? Option A. Report the suspicion to a supervisor without any further observation or immediate action. Option B. Ignore the behavior, assuming it is a nervous habit and not a violation of the rules, to avoid disrupting the exam. Option C. Immediately confront the candidate and confiscate any suspected device, regardless of definitive proof. Option D. Discreetly observe the candidate's behavior further to gather more concrete evidence of potential misconduct before taking any action. The correct answer is D. Discreetly observe the candidate's behavior further to gather more concrete evidence of potential misconduct before taking any action. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead to unethical shortcuts. Akita Prefectural University's entrance examination regulations, as per the guidelines for this exam, strictly prohibit any form of academic dishonesty, including the use of unauthorized aids. The university's framework emphasizes fairness, equal opportunity, and the accurate assessment of a candidate's genuine knowledge and abilities. The correct approach involves recognizing the potential for academic misconduct and implementing proactive measures to uphold the integrity of the examination process. This aligns with the principles of fair assessment and the university's stated commitment to academic honesty. Specifically, the university's examination guidelines would mandate that proctors be vigilant in observing candidates for any suspicious behavior and be prepared to intervene appropriately if such behavior is detected. This proactive stance is crucial for maintaining a level playing field for all applicants. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed behavior, assuming it is not significant or not wanting to cause a disturbance. This failure to act directly contravenes the university's regulations on academic integrity and the responsibility of examination personnel to ensure a fair testing environment. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately accuse the student without concrete evidence, which could lead to an unfair accusation and damage the student's reputation and future prospects, violating principles of due process and fairness. A third incorrect approach would be to report the incident to a superior without taking any immediate, albeit discreet, observation or action, which delays the necessary intervention and potentially allows the misconduct to continue. The professional decision-making process in such situations requires a balanced approach, vigilance, adherence to established procedures, and a commitment to fairness. Professionals should first discreetly observe the situation to gather evidence. If misconduct is confirmed, they should follow the university's established protocol for handling such incidents, which typically involves a formal report and investigation, ensuring that the student has an opportunity to respond. The primary goal is to protect the integrity of the examination while treating all candidates with respect and fairness. Question 4. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential anomaly in the examination materials provided to one candidate during the Akita Prefectural University entrance examination, specifically concerning the unusual similarity of answers to a complex essay question with publicly available, but not widely disseminated, academic commentary from a niche journal. The examination committee needs to determine the appropriate course of action. Option A. Contact the candidate directly to inquire about their sources for the essay, potentially revealing the university's awareness of the specific commentary and compromising the integrity of the investigation. Option B. Ignore the anomaly, assuming it is a coincidence, and proceed with grading all submissions as normal to avoid disrupting the examination process. Option C. Immediately disqualify the candidate based on the suspicion of academic misconduct, citing the unusual similarity of the essay response. Option D. Initiate a formal review process by gathering all documentation related to the candidate's submission and the specific commentary, consulting the university's academic integrity policy, and convening a meeting of the examination subcommittee to assess the evidence objectively before any decision is made. The correct answer is D. Initiate a formal review process by gathering all documentation related to the candidate's submission and the specific commentary, consulting the university's academic integrity policy, and convening a meeting of the examination subcommittee to assess the evidence objectively before any decision is made. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between academic integrity and the need to support students. The university entrance exam for Akita Prefectural University is a critical juncture, and any deviation from established procedures could compromise the fairness and validity of the assessment. The challenge lies in identifying and addressing potential irregularities without overstepping boundaries or creating undue stress for legitimate candidates. Careful judgment is required to balance the university's commitment to a rigorous and equitable admissions process with its responsibility to foster a supportive learning environment. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based review of the identified risk. This means gathering all available information, consulting relevant university regulations and guidelines pertaining to entrance examinations, and potentially seeking clarification from the examination committee or relevant academic affairs department. The focus should be on objective assessment of the situation against established criteria, ensuring that any actions taken are proportionate and in line with the university's stated policies on academic misconduct and admissions. This upholds the principle of fairness to all applicants and maintains the integrity of the university's selection process. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the candidate based on suspicion alone, without a thorough investigation. This violates the principle of due process and could lead to an unjust outcome. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the identified risk, which would undermine the university's commitment to maintaining a fair and secure examination process and could set a precedent for future irregularities. Furthermore, an approach that involves informal or unauthorized communication about the suspected irregularity with other students or external parties would be a breach of confidentiality and professional ethics. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes objectivity, adherence to established procedures, and fairness. This involves 1. Information gathering. Collect all relevant facts and evidence. 2. Policy review. Consult university regulations and guidelines specific to entrance exams and academic integrity. 3. Consultation. Seek advice from appropriate university authorities or committees. 4. Objective assessment. Evaluate the situation against established criteria. 5. Proportionate action. Determine and implement actions that are fair, justified, and in line with university policy. 6. Documentation. Maintain thorough records of all steps taken and decisions made. Question 5. Risk assessment procedures indicate a second-year student at Akita Prefectural University has been found to have plagiarized a significant portion of their research paper. The student, when confronted, provided evidence of severe personal hardship, including family illness and financial distress, which they claim significantly impacted their ability to complete the work to the required standard and led to their lapse in academic integrity. The university's academic integrity policy outlines clear penalties for plagiarism, but also mentions that exceptional circumstances may be taken into account. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and guidelines for Akita Prefectural University in addressing this situation? Option A. Dismiss the plagiarism charge entirely, given the student's significant personal hardship, and focus on providing academic support to help them recover from their difficulties. Option B. Rely on the student's verbal account of their personal struggles and offer a warning without formal documentation or further investigation, prioritizing a compassionate response over strict adherence to policy. Option C. Conduct a thorough investigation into the extent and nature of the plagiarism, formally document the student's presented personal circumstances, and then, in consultation with the relevant academic committee and according to university policy, determine a sanction that considers both the academic offense and the substantiated mitigating factors. Option D. Immediately impose the standard penalty for plagiarism as outlined in the academic integrity policy, regardless of the student's personal circumstances, to maintain consistent enforcement of academic standards. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough investigation into the extent and nature of the plagiarism, formally document the student's presented personal circumstances, and then, in consultation with the relevant academic committee and according to university policy, determine a sanction that considers both the academic offense and the substantiated mitigating factors. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to support students facing personal difficulties. The core issue is how to respond to a student's academic misconduct when there are mitigating personal circumstances. Akita Prefectural University's regulations, as would be typical for a Japanese educational institution, likely emphasize fairness, due process, and the importance of upholding academic standards. A key consideration is whether the university's internal disciplinary procedures allow for discretion in sentencing based on extenuating factors, and if so, What evidence is required to justify such discretion? The university's guidelines on academic honesty would also be paramount, outlining the definitions of misconduct and the potential consequences. Professional challenge lies in applying these regulations consistently, while also demonstrating empathy and a commitment to student welfare, ensuring that any disciplinary action is proportionate and just. The correct approach involves a thorough investigation of the academic misconduct, followed by a review of the student's personal circumstances in accordance with university policy. This approach prioritizes gathering all relevant facts before making a decision. It acknowledges the seriousness of academic dishonesty, while also allowing for a compassionate and fair response if mitigating factors are substantiated. This aligns with principles of natural justice and the university's responsibility to both maintain academic standards and support its students. Specifically, it would involve consulting the university's academic integrity policy and disciplinary procedures, which would likely outline a process for investigating allegations, providing the student an opportunity to respond, and considering any presented evidence of extenuating circumstances before determining an appropriate sanction. An incorrect approach would be to immediately impose the harshest penalty without a proper investigation or consideration of the student's circumstances. This fails to adhere to due process and may violate university regulations that require a fair hearing and consideration of all relevant factors. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the misconduct entirely due to the personal difficulties, without any form of accountability. This undermines academic integrity and sets a precedent that could encourage future misconduct. A third incorrect approach would be to rely solely on anecdotal information about the student's struggles without seeking formal substantiation, as this could lead to inconsistent or unfair application of university policies. Professionals in this situation should follow a structured decision-making process. First, clearly identify the alleged academic misconduct and the relevant university policies. Second, conduct a thorough and impartial investigation, gathering evidence from all parties involved. Third, provide the student with a clear understanding of the allegations and an opportunity to present their case, including any mitigating circumstances. Fourth, consult the university's disciplinary framework and relevant precedents to determine appropriate sanctions, ensuring proportionality and fairness. Finally, document the entire process and the rationale for the decision. Question 6. The monitoring system demonstrates a significant increase in student interaction with supplementary learning resources, but a slight decrease in participation in practice quizzes. Considering the Akita Prefectural University entrance exam's emphasis on assessing foundational knowledge and problem-solving skills, which interpretation of this data is most aligned with fair and effective candidate evaluation? Option A. The decrease in practice quiz participation is a direct sign of declining academic rigor and should be weighted heavily against the candidate's overall profile. Option B. The increased interaction with supplementary resources is likely due to students seeking easier ways to appear engaged, and the decrease in quizzes reflects a lack of discipline. Option C. The increased interaction with supplementary resources indicates a deeper engagement with the subject matter, suggesting a candidate's proactive learning approach, which is a positive indicator despite the dip in quiz participation. Option D. The monitoring system's data is inherently unreliable for assessing academic potential, and therefore, no conclusions should be drawn from it regarding a candidate's readiness for the entrance exam. The correct answer is C. The increased interaction with supplementary resources indicates a deeper engagement with the subject matter, suggesting a candidate's proactive learning approach, which is a positive indicator despite the dip in quiz participation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential for misinterpreting data from a university's monitoring system, which could lead to incorrect assumptions about student engagement or academic performance. Akita Prefectural University entrance exam regulations, while not explicitly detailed here, would implicitly require adherence to principles of fairness, accuracy, and responsible data interpretation in any assessment or evaluation context. The challenge lies in distinguishing between genuine indicators of academic readiness and superficial or misleading data points. The correct approach involves a nuanced understanding of the monitoring system's limitations and a focus on qualitative indicators that align with the spirit of university entrance examinations, which aim to assess potential and suitability for higher education. This approach prioritizes a holistic view of a candidate's preparation, recognizing that a single data point, especially one derived from a system not designed for direct academic assessment, is insufficient for a definitive judgment. Regulatory adherence would stem from the implicit requirement for fair and equitable assessment practices, ensuring that candidates are evaluated on substantive academic merit rather than potentially flawed system outputs. An incorrect approach that relies solely on the quantitative output of the monitoring system fails to acknowledge the system's purpose and limitations. Such an approach risks penalizing students based on factors unrelated to their academic capabilities, such as technical proficiency or engagement with non-academic features of the system. This would be a regulatory failure as it deviates from the principle of assessing academic potential. Another incorrect approach that attempts to infer direct academic performance from system activity without established correlation or validation is ethically unsound. It represents a misapplication of data and could lead to biased evaluations, violating the ethical obligation to treat all candidates fairly and impartially. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the purpose and scope of any data source. They must then critically evaluate the reliability and relevance of the data in relation to the assessment objectives. When dealing with university entrance examinations, this means prioritizing evidence of academic aptitude, critical thinking, and motivation, and using supplementary data sources only when they demonstrably support these core assessment goals and are ethically and regulatorily sound. Question 7. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a proposed new research facility at Akita Prefectural University offers significant potential for increased research funding and prestige. However, preliminary assessments suggest the construction site is adjacent to a sensitive wetland area, and local residents have expressed concerns about potential noise pollution and increased traffic. The university administration is considering how to proceed. Which of the following approaches best reflects responsible decision-making in this context? Option A. Commission a comprehensive, independent environmental and social impact assessment. Engage in transparent dialogue with local residents to understand and address their concerns, and explore design modifications or mitigation measures to minimize negative impacts before making a final decision. Option B. Halt the project immediately due to the potential environmental and social risks, forfeiting the opportunity for enhanced research capabilities and funding. Option C. Prioritize the financial benefits by proceeding with construction and allocating a small portion of the research funding towards a public relations campaign to manage community perceptions. Option D. Proceed with the facility construction as planned, as the projected financial and academic benefits outweigh the speculative environmental and social concerns, which can be addressed with minimal mitigation efforts later. Correct answer is D. Proceed with the facility construction as planned, as the projected financial and academic benefits outweigh the speculative environmental and social concerns, which can be addressed with minimal mitigation efforts later. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial benefits of a proposed project against potential long-term environmental and social impacts, which are often difficult to quantify precisely. The decision-maker must navigate the ethical imperative to act responsibly towards the community and the environment, even when faced with strong financial incentives. This requires a judgment call that goes beyond simple profit maximization, demanding consideration of stakeholder well-being and sustainable development principles, which are implicitly valued in the context of a public university's role in society. The correct approach involves prioritizing a comprehensive assessment of all potential impacts, both positive and negative, and considering the long-term sustainability of the project. This aligns with the spirit of responsible governance and community engagement expected of institutions like Akita Prefectural University. While specific regulations for university entrance exams do not directly dictate project management, the underlying ethical framework for public institutions emphasizes public good and long-term welfare. Therefore, a decision that thoroughly investigates and mitigates potential negative externalities, even if it reduces immediate financial gains, is professionally sound and ethically justifiable. This approach demonstrates foresight and a commitment to the university's broader societal responsibilities. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the immediate cost-benefit analysis that highlights financial gains, ignoring or downplaying potential environmental degradation or negative community impacts. This fails to uphold the ethical duty of care towards the environment and local residents, potentially leading to long-term reputational damage and unforeseen costs associated with remediation or public backlash. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the project entirely based on preliminary concerns without a thorough investigation. This misses an opportunity for potential development that could benefit the university and the region, provided that risks are adequately managed. A third incorrect approach would be to proceed with the project without transparent communication with stakeholders, thereby undermining trust and potentially creating conflict. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a multi-stakeholder consultation, a thorough environmental and social impact assessment, and the development of robust mitigation strategies. The decision should be guided by principles of transparency, accountability, and a commitment to sustainable development, ensuring that the university's actions are aligned with its public mission and long-term societal benefit. Question 8. Investigation of the process for developing new questions for the Akita Prefectural University Entrance Examination reveals a potential strategy to adapt existing questions from previous years by slightly rephrasing them to maintain a sense of novelty. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for this examination? Option A. Designing questions with intentionally ambiguous phrasing or multiple possible interpretations to encourage critical thinking and debate among candidates. Option B. Developing entirely new questions that are original, directly relevant to the current curriculum, and designed to assess a broad range of student understanding without relying on prior examination patterns. Option C. Modifying the wording of questions from past examinations to create a superficial appearance of originality, while retaining the core concepts and difficulty level. Option D. Incorporating questions that test highly specialized or obscure knowledge not explicitly covered in the standard curriculum, to differentiate candidates based on exceptional breadth of study. The correct answer is B. Developing entirely new questions that are original, directly relevant to the current curriculum, and designed to assess a broad range of student understanding without relying on prior examination patterns. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable outcomes in a competitive university entrance examination. The need for careful judgment arises from the ethical obligation to uphold the fairness of the examination process, while also considering the aspirations of the students. The Akita Prefectural University Entrance Examination Regulations, as stipulated by the university's academic board and relevant prefectural educational guidelines, emphasize impartiality, transparency, and the prevention of any form of academic misconduct. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial review of the examination materials, adhering strictly to the established protocols for question development and validation. This process, guided by the Akita Prefectural University's examination guidelines for entrance examinations, mandates that all questions must be original, relevant to the curriculum, and free from bias or any potential for misinterpretation that could unfairly advantage or disadvantage candidates. The focus is on assessing genuine understanding and application of knowledge, not on identifying or exploiting loopholes. An incorrect approach that involves subtly altering the wording of existing questions from past examinations to appear novel would fail to meet the originality requirement. This would violate the principle of fair assessment, as it could inadvertently test a candidate's familiarity with previous question structures rather than their current academic proficiency. Such an action would also contravene the Akita Prefectural University's examination guidelines concerning the integrity of the examination content. Another incorrect approach, such as incorporating questions that are overly obscure or tangential to the prescribed curriculum, would also be professionally unacceptable. This would violate the principle of relevance and could lead to an unfair assessment, as candidates might be penalized for not possessing knowledge outside the scope of their expected learning. This directly contradicts the Akita Prefectural University's examination guidelines, which stress that questions must align with the educational objectives and syllabus. A further incorrect approach, which might involve designing questions with ambiguous phrasing or multiple interpretations, would undermine the transparency and fairness of the examination. This could lead to inconsistent grading and create an environment where success is determined by interpretation rather than by demonstrable knowledge. The Akita Prefectural University's examination guidelines explicitly require clarity and precision in question formulation to ensure equitable evaluation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic review of all proposed examination questions against the established regulatory framework and ethical principles. This includes seeking peer review, conducting pilot testing where appropriate, and ensuring that all questions are aligned with the university's academic standards and the principles of fair and equitable assessment. Transparency in the question development process and a commitment to originality and relevance are paramount. Question 9. System analysis indicates that a student approaches a faculty member for assistance with an upcoming assignment, expressing significant difficulty and asking for some examples of how to solve these types of problems. And if you could just show me how to start the first one. The faculty member is aware that the assignment is designed to assess the student's independent application of recently taught concepts. Considering the academic integrity framework of Akita Prefectural University, what is the most appropriate course of action for the faculty member? Option A. Complete the first problem for the student to demonstrate the process, and then allow the student to work on the remaining problems independently. Option B. Provide the student with detailed examples of solved problems that closely mirror the assignment structure and offer to guide them through the initial steps of the first problem. Option C. Explain the relevant concepts again, suggest specific textbook chapters and supplementary readings, and offer to review the student's work once they have made a genuine attempt. Option D. Advise the student to collaborate with classmates to find solutions, as group work is often beneficial for understanding complex assignments. The correct answer is B. Provide the student with detailed examples of solved problems that closely mirror the assignment structure and offer to guide them through the initial steps of the first problem. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic assistance and the university's commitment to academic integrity. Akita Prefectural University, like all academic institutions, operates under a framework of regulations and ethical guidelines designed to ensure fair assessment and the development of genuine understanding. The challenge lies in navigating a request that, if fulfilled improperly, could undermine these principles. Careful judgment is required to uphold academic standards while still providing appropriate support. The correct approach involves recognizing the boundaries of permissible academic assistance. This means understanding that while students can receive guidance on understanding course material, they cannot receive direct help that compromises the integrity of their assignments or examinations. Specifically, Akita Prefectural University's academic regulations likely stipulate that all submitted work must be the student's own original effort. Providing a student with pre-written answers or directly completing parts of their assignment would violate these regulations by facilitating academic dishonesty. Instead, the appropriate action is to guide the student towards resources and methods that empower them to complete the work themselves, fostering independent learning and critical thinking, which are core educational objectives. An incorrect approach would be to directly provide the student with answers or to complete portions of their assignment. This directly violates Akita Prefectural University's academic integrity policies, which are designed to prevent plagiarism and ensure that all work submitted reflects the student's own knowledge and effort. Such an action would not only be unethical, but also detrimental to the student's learning process, as it bypasses the opportunity for them to develop their own problem-solving skills. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request entirely without offering any form of guidance or explanation. While this avoids direct complicity in academic dishonesty, it fails to uphold the university's responsibility to support student learning and address potential misunderstandings about academic expectations. A professional response requires engagement, even if it means setting clear boundaries and redirecting the student towards appropriate academic support mechanisms. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's academic integrity policies. When faced with a request that borders on or crosses into academic dishonesty, a professional should first identify the core principles at stake: fairness, honesty, and the development of student learning. The next step is to assess the request against these principles and the specific regulations of Akita Prefectural University. If the request is problematic, The professional should clearly communicate the boundaries of acceptable assistance, explaining why the direct request cannot be fulfilled. Simultaneously, they should offer constructive alternatives, such as directing the student to relevant course materials, study groups, or academic support services, thereby fulfilling the university's obligation to support student success within ethical and regulatory frameworks. Question 10. The assessment process reveals credible allegations that a candidate for the Akita Prefectural University entrance examination may have accessed unauthorized study materials during a supervised break. The examination supervisor has reported observing suspicious behavior consistent with this allegation. According to the Akita Prefectural University entrance examination regulations, what is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the university administration? Option A. Discreetly observe the candidate for the remainder of the examination to gather more definitive evidence before taking any action. Option B. Inform the candidate of the allegations during the examination and request an immediate explanation. Option C. Continue the examination for all candidates without interruption and address the allegations after the examination concludes, pending further investigation. Option D. Immediately disqualify the candidate from the examination and initiate a formal disciplinary review based on the supervisor's report. The correct answer is D. Immediately disqualify the candidate from the examination and initiate a formal disciplinary review based on the supervisor's report. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge in academic integrity and the fair evaluation of candidates for Akita Prefectural University. The core issue is ensuring that all applicants are assessed on their own merits and understanding, without any undue influence or unfair advantage. The university's entrance examination regulations, as stipulated by the Akita Prefectural University Act and its associated examination guidelines, mandate a rigorous and impartial assessment process. Any deviation from these principles undermines the credibility of the examination and the university itself. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective investigation into the alleged misconduct, adhering strictly to the university's established disciplinary procedures. This process should prioritize gathering verifiable evidence, providing the accused candidate with an opportunity to respond, and making a decision based on the findings in relation to the university's academic integrity policies. This upholds the principle of fairness and due process, ensuring that any disciplinary action is proportionate and justified according to the university's regulations. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the candidate based solely on an unsubstantiated rumor or a preliminary, unconfirmed report. This fails to respect the presumption of innocence and bypasses the required investigation procedures outlined in the university's guidelines, potentially leading to an unjust outcome and legal challenges. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the allegations entirely, as this would demonstrate a lack of commitment to maintaining academic standards and could be seen as condoning academic dishonesty, thereby violating the university's duty to ensure a fair examination environment. Finally, an approach that involves publicizing the allegations without a formal investigation or confirmation would violate the candidate's privacy and could constitute defamation, further compounding the ethical and procedural failures. Professionals in university admissions and examination administration must employ a systematic decision-making process. This involves 1. Acknowledging and documenting any credible allegations of misconduct. 2. Consulting the relevant university regulations and policies to understand the prescribed procedures for handling such matters. 3. Initiating a fair and impartial investigation to gather evidence. 4. Providing the accused individual with an opportunity to present their case. 5. Making a decision based on the evidence and in accordance with the established regulations. 6. Ensuring that any disciplinary actions are proportionate and clearly communicated. Question 11. When evaluating an applicant's submission for the Akita Prefectural University entrance exam, and a credible allegation of plagiarism is raised concerning a submitted essay, what is the most appropriate course of action to ensure fairness and uphold academic integrity? Option A. Inform the applicant of the allegation and ask them to withdraw their application to avoid further complications. Option B. Proceed with the admission process as normal, disregarding the plagiarism allegation due to the difficulty of verifying it during the admissions period. Option C. Conduct a thorough investigation into the plagiarism allegation, providing the applicant with an opportunity to respond, and make a decision based on the findings and university policy. Option D. Immediately reject the applicant's submission upon receiving the allegation, without further inquiry. Correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough investigation into the plagiarism allegation, providing the applicant with an opportunity to respond, and make a decision based on the findings and university policy. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge in academic integrity and university admissions, requiring careful judgment to uphold the principles of fairness and meritocracy. The university must balance its commitment to admitting qualified students with the need to investigate potential misconduct. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation into the alleged plagiarism. This process should adhere to the Akita Prefectural University's established academic integrity policies and procedures. Such policies typically outline steps for gathering evidence, providing the applicant with an opportunity to respond, and making a decision based on established criteria. This upholds the ethical obligation to ensure a fair admissions process and maintain the university's academic standards. It respects the applicant's right to due process while safeguarding the integrity of the admission system. An incorrect approach would be to immediately reject the application based solely on the accusation without any investigation. This fails to provide the applicant with a fair hearing and violates principles of natural justice. It assumes guilt without due process, which is ethically unsound and likely contrary to university regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the accusation and proceed with the admission as if no issue was raised. This undermines the university's commitment to academic integrity and could lead to admitting a student who has engaged in dishonest practices. It signals a lack of seriousness regarding academic misconduct and erodes trust in the admissions process. A further incorrect approach would be to make a decision based on external pressure or personal bias, rather than on the evidence and established university policies. This compromises the impartiality of the admissions process and is a serious ethical breach, potentially leading to unfair outcomes and damage to the university's reputation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a structured approach. 1. Acknowledge and document the allegation. 2. Consult the relevant university policies and guidelines for handling academic misconduct in admissions. 3. Initiate a fair and impartial investigation, ensuring the applicant is informed and given an opportunity to present their case. 4. Gather and review all relevant evidence objectively. 5. Make a decision based on the findings of the investigation and the established policies, not on assumptions or external factors. 6. Communicate the decision and the reasoning clearly to the applicant. Question 12. The audit findings indicate a consistent pattern of lower than expected performance in a specific foundational course across multiple cohorts of students at Akita Prefectural University. The audit report suggests potential issues with the clarity of learning objectives, the effectiveness of pedagogical methods employed, and the alignment of assessment criteria with the stated objectives. The university's Academic Affairs Committee is tasked with determining the most appropriate course of action. Which of the following represents the most responsible and ethically sound approach for the university to address these audit findings? Option A. Implement a mandatory remedial program for all students who have previously taken the course and received a passing grade below a certain threshold, without further investigation into the course's effectiveness. Option B. Disregard the audit findings as a potential anomaly and continue with the current course structure, assuming student performance will naturally improve over time. Option C. Initiate a comprehensive review of the course's curriculum, teaching methodologies, and assessment strategies, involving faculty teaching the course and academic support staff, to identify root causes and develop targeted improvement plans, including student support resources. Option D. Immediately revise the course syllabus to include more rigorous assessment methods and inform students that future performance will be graded more strictly. Correct answer is D. Immediately revise the course syllabus to include more rigorous assessment methods and inform students that future performance will be graded more strictly. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential conflict between academic integrity and the university's commitment to fostering a supportive learning environment. The audit findings suggest a systemic issue that requires a nuanced approach, balancing the need for accurate assessment with the ethical considerations of student support. The university must uphold its academic standards while also ensuring that students are treated fairly and given opportunities for improvement. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the audit findings to identify specific areas of concern, and then developing a targeted intervention strategy. This strategy should include clear communication with affected students about the identified issues, providing them with resources for academic support, and establishing a fair process for re-evaluation or remediation. This aligns with the principles of academic fairness and due process, ensuring that students are not penalized without understanding the reasons and having a chance to rectify their performance. It also reflects the university's responsibility to maintain the quality of its education and the integrity of its degrees. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement punitive measures without further investigation or student consultation. This could involve automatically failing students or imposing sanctions without understanding the root causes of the audit findings, such as potential issues with teaching materials, assessment methods, or student support services. Such an approach would be ethically questionable, potentially leading to unfair outcomes for students and damaging the university's reputation. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the audit findings and take no action. This would demonstrate a lack of accountability and a failure to uphold academic standards, potentially leading to a decline in educational quality and a loss of trust from students and the wider academic community. A third incorrect approach would be to implement a blanket policy that does not differentiate between varying degrees of academic deficiency or individual student circumstances. This would be overly rigid and fail to address the specific needs of students, potentially causing undue hardship. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a comprehensive understanding of the problem, adherence to university policies and ethical guidelines, and a commitment to fairness and student development. This involves gathering all relevant information, consulting with stakeholders, e.g., faculty, academic advisors, student representatives, and developing a solution that is both effective in addressing the academic issues and ethically sound in its treatment of students. Question 13. Analysis of the process for generating new questions for the Akita Prefectural University Entrance Exam reveals several potential strategies. Which strategy best adheres to the university's regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines for examination integrity and originality? Option A. Selecting questions from a popular online educational resource that covers the general subject area, with minor modifications to the wording to avoid direct duplication. Option B. Adapting questions from a well-regarded textbook, ensuring that the core concepts tested are relevant to the university's syllabus, even if the question structure remains largely the same. Option C. Developing questions that synthesize concepts from recent academic research in the field, ensuring they are phrased in a novel manner and directly assess the core competencies outlined in the university's curriculum. Option D. Reusing questions from a previous entrance examination administered by a different prefecture's university, as these are generally considered to be of a suitable academic standard. The correct answer is C. Developing questions that synthesize concepts from recent academic research in the field, ensuring they are phrased in a novel manner, and directly assess the core competencies outlined in the university's curriculum. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge related to academic integrity and the proper use of university resources, specifically concerning the creation of entrance examination questions. The university entrance exam is a critical gateway, and maintaining its fairness and validity is paramount. The challenge lies in balancing the need for novel and relevant questions with the ethical obligation to avoid plagiarism and ensure originality. The university's regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines for the Akita Prefectural University Entrance Exam are the sole basis for determining the correct course of action. The correct approach involves developing questions that are original and reflect a deep understanding of the subject matter, drawing upon current academic discourse and pedagogical best practices relevant to the university's curriculum, without directly copying or closely paraphrasing existing materials. This upholds the principle of academic integrity by ensuring that the examination accurately assesses a candidate's knowledge and abilities, rather than their ability to recall or adapt pre-existing content. It aligns with the implicit ethical duty of examiners to create fair and unbiased assessments, as stipulated by the university's examination guidelines, which emphasize originality and relevance. An incorrect approach of directly copying questions from a recently published academic journal article, even with minor word changes, constitutes plagiarism. This violates the fundamental ethical principle of intellectual honesty and the university's guidelines on academic integrity, which implicitly prohibit the use of copyrighted material without proper attribution or permission in an examination context. Such an action undermines the validity of the examination and could lead to legal challenges regarding copyright infringement. Another incorrect approach of adapting questions from a previous year's entrance exam for a different university, without significant modification, and without considering the specific learning objectives of Akita Prefectural University, is also professionally unacceptable. While not direct plagiarism, it demonstrates a lack of originality and a failure to tailor the assessment to the specific requirements of the current examination. This approach risks creating questions that are either too easy, if the previous exam was less rigorous, or irrelevant to the knowledge and skills Akita Prefectural University aims to assess. A further incorrect approach of relying solely on publicly available online quizzes for question generation, without critical evaluation or adaptation, fails to meet the standard of rigorous academic assessment. While these quizzes may offer a starting point, they often lack the depth, complexity, and specific focus required for a university entrance examination. This approach risks producing superficial questions that do not adequately test the higher-order thinking skills expected of prospective university students, and may not align with the specific academic standards of Akita Prefectural University. The professional decision-making process in such situations requires a thorough understanding of the university's examination regulations and ethical guidelines. Examiners must prioritize originality, relevance, and fairness. This involves brainstorming topics, consulting a range of credible academic sources, and critically evaluating potential questions for their suitability and originality. If inspiration is drawn from existing material, significant adaptation, synthesis, and original formulation are necessary to ensure the question is a genuine assessment of the candidate's own understanding. Question 14. Market research demonstrates a growing interest in specialized STEM programs among high school students in the Akita region. To better align its entrance examination content and selection criteria with applicant aspirations and regional workforce needs, Akita Prefectural University is considering developing new market research initiatives. Which of the following approaches best adheres to the principles of ethical data collection and responsible academic practice within the context of university entrance examinations? Option A. Relying solely on anecdotal feedback from current faculty and alumni regarding perceived student interests and regional needs, without any systematic data gathering. Option B. Commissioning a comprehensive study that analyzes publicly available demographic data, educational trends in STEM fields, and reports on regional industry demands, without directly engaging prospective students. Option C. Purchasing a proprietary database of high school student contact information and academic performance indicators from a commercial vendor, and using this data to infer program interest. Option D. Launching a targeted online survey campaign directly to high school students, asking about their career aspirations and preferred examination subjects, without prior consent or clear explanation of data usage. The correct answer is B. Commissioning a comprehensive study that analyzes publicly available demographic data, educational trends in STEM fields, and reports on regional industry demands, without directly engaging prospective students. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance the university's academic mission with the ethical considerations of data privacy and responsible research practices, all within the specific regulatory framework of Akita Prefectural University entrance exam guidelines. The university must ensure that any market research conducted to inform its entrance exam strategy is both effective and compliant with its own internal policies, and any relevant Japanese educational or data protection laws that might implicitly or explicitly govern such activities. Careful judgment is required to avoid exploiting potential applicants or misrepresenting the university's offerings. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing market research data that is publicly available or has been ethically sourced by the university for similar purposes. This approach prioritizes data integrity and respects privacy by utilizing information that has already passed ethical scrutiny or is in the public domain. The regulatory justification lies in adhering to principles of responsible data handling and academic integrity, ensuring that decisions about the entrance exam are based on sound, ethically obtained evidence, and that no undue pressure or misleading information is disseminated to prospective students. This aligns with the spirit of fair and transparent admissions processes. An incorrect approach that involves directly surveying prospective students without clear consent or a defined research purpose would fail on multiple ethical and potentially regulatory grounds. This would constitute an invasion of privacy and could be perceived as intrusive or manipulative, potentially violating principles of informed consent and data protection. Another incorrect approach, such as using data from unverified or potentially biased third-party sources without due diligence, risks basing critical decisions on inaccurate or misleading information, undermining the credibility of the entrance exam process and potentially leading to unfair outcomes for applicants. This also fails to uphold the university's responsibility to maintain high academic and ethical standards. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-step approach. First, clearly define the research objectives and the specific information needed. Second, identify all potential data sources and rigorously assess their ethical sourcing and reliability. Third, consult relevant university policies and any applicable external regulations regarding data collection and usage. Fourth, prioritize approaches that minimize privacy risks and maximize data integrity. Finally, document the decision-making process and the rationale for the chosen approach. Question 15. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential discrepancy in the evaluation of an applicant for the Akita Prefectural University entrance exam. The applicant has a strong extracurricular profile and glowing recommendations from local community leaders, but their academic transcripts show a slight deviation from the standard prerequisite subject grades for the intended program. The admissions committee is considering whether to grant an exception based on the applicant's perceived leadership qualities and community involvement. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and guidelines for the Akita Prefectural University entrance exam? Option A. Request additional subjective assessments of the applicant's character and potential from sources outside the official academic record, and use these to justify a departure from the stated academic entry requirements. Option B. Prioritize the applicant's strong extracurricular achievements and the influential recommendations, granting an exception to the standard academic prerequisites due to their perceived potential for leadership and community contribution. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the applicant's academic transcripts against the specific subject grade requirements and any officially recognized equivalencies or alternative pathways outlined in the Akita Prefectural University's admission policy and relevant prefectural educational guidelines. Option D. Focus on the applicant's overall perceived potential and the positive impression they made during an informal interview, overriding the specific academic grade requirements if the committee feels they are not a true reflection of the applicant's capabilities. Correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the applicant's academic transcripts against the specific subject grade requirements and any officially recognized equivalencies or alternative pathways outlined in the Akita Prefectural University's admission policy and relevant prefectural educational guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in the context of university admissions, specifically concerning the evaluation of applicant qualifications for the Akita Prefectural University entrance exam. The challenge lies in balancing the university's commitment to academic merit with the ethical imperative to ensure fair and equitable assessment, avoiding any form of discrimination or undue influence. Careful judgment is required to interpret and apply the university's admission guidelines and relevant prefectural regulations concerning educational standards and fairness. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's academic record against the established criteria for the Akita Prefectural University entrance exam, considering any officially recognized equivalencies or special circumstances as outlined in the university's admission policy and relevant prefectural educational guidelines. This approach is right because it adheres strictly to the documented admission requirements and ensures that all applicants are evaluated on a consistent and transparent basis, upholding the principles of fairness and meritocracy mandated by the university and prefectural regulations. It prioritizes objective assessment over subjective interpretations or external pressures, an incorrect approach that relies solely on the applicant's perceived potential, without concrete evidence of meeting the academic prerequisites, fails to adhere to the established admission criteria. This would be a regulatory failure, as it bypasses the defined standards for entry, and an ethical failure, as it introduces subjectivity and potential bias. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes recommendations from influential individuals over the applicant's academic qualifications is also a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It undermines the integrity of the admission process by introducing external factors that are not part of the merit-based evaluation framework, potentially leading to unfair advantages and violating the principle of equal opportunity. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic review of all available information against the university's admission policy and relevant prefectural educational laws. This includes identifying the specific criteria for the program, assessing the applicant's documented qualifications, and considering any officially sanctioned exceptions or alternative pathways. If ambiguity exists, consulting with the admissions committee or relevant university authorities for clarification is crucial to ensure adherence to regulations and ethical standards. The focus must always remain on objective, evidence-based evaluation. Question 16. Research into the admission process for Akita Prefectural University reveals that a prospective student, under significant pressure to secure a place, has obtained information about the specific format and types of questions that will appear on the upcoming entrance examination from an unauthorized source. This information is not publicly available and is considered confidential by the university. The student is now contemplating how to best utilize this information to prepare for the exam. Option A. The student should share the unauthorized information with other prospective students to create a collaborative study group that can collectively prepare for the specific questions. Option B. The student should meticulously study the provided information, focusing on understanding the underlying concepts and principles that the questions are likely to test, while ensuring all preparation remains within the scope of the university's general academic guidelines for entrance examinations. Option C. The student should use the unauthorized information to memorize specific answers or question patterns, believing this will guarantee a higher score. Option D. The student should attempt to contact the source of the information to inquire about the possibility of receiving further details or hints about the examination content. The correct answer is B. The student should meticulously study the provided information, focusing on understanding the underlying concepts and principles that the questions are likely to test, while ensuring all preparation remains within the scope of the university's general academic guidelines for entrance examinations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams, especially for a prestigious institution like Akita Prefectural University, can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. The university's regulatory framework, as embodied in its entrance examination guidelines and academic integrity policies, is designed to ensure a level playing field and uphold the value of its degrees. Therefore, any action that circumvents or compromises these principles is a serious ethical and regulatory breach. The correct approach involves a student relying solely on their own knowledge and preparation, adhering strictly to the examination rules and instructions provided by Akita Prefectural University. This aligns with the university's stated commitment to evaluating candidates based on their genuine understanding and aptitude, as outlined in its entrance examination regulations. Ethical conduct in this context means upholding honesty and integrity throughout the application and examination process. An incorrect approach would be to seek or use unauthorized assistance during the examination. This directly violates the principles of academic integrity and the specific rules of the Akita Prefectural University entrance exam, which prohibit any form of cheating or external aid. Such actions undermine the fairness of the assessment process and devalue the achievements of honest candidates. Another incorrect approach would be to misrepresent one's qualifications or background to gain an advantage. This constitutes academic dishonesty and fraud, violating the trust placed in applicants by the university and its governing regulations. It also fails to demonstrate the genuine capabilities that the university seeks in its students. A further incorrect approach would be to attempt to influence the examination process through improper means, such as bribery or coercion. This is not only a severe ethical violation, but also likely contravenes specific university disciplinary codes and potentially broader legal statutes concerning academic institutions. It fundamentally corrupts the merit-based selection process. The professional decision-making process for students facing such situations should be guided by a strong ethical compass, prioritizing honesty, integrity, and adherence to established rules. This involves understanding the university's regulations thoroughly, recognizing the consequences of academic misconduct, and making conscious choices to act ethically, even under pressure. If faced with temptation or uncertainty, seeking clarification from university officials or trusted mentors is a responsible step. Question 17. The efficiency study reveals that processing applications from certain prefectures takes, on average, 15% longer due to variations in standardized documentation submission. This has led to a proposal to introduce a processing priority system that would expedite applications from prefectures with more streamlined documentation, potentially impacting the timeline for reviewing applications from other prefectures. Considering the Akita Prefectural University Entrance Exam's commitment to fair and equitable admissions, which of the following actions best reflects a responsible and compliant response to this finding? Option A. Implement the processing priority system as proposed, arguing that it enhances overall administrative efficiency and reduces the university's operational burden. Option B. Adjust the admission quotas for prefectures with longer processing times to compensate for the perceived administrative inefficiency, thereby reducing the number of applications from those regions. Option C. Conduct a deeper analysis to understand the root causes of the documentation variations and explore targeted support or guidance for applicants from affected prefectures to standardize submissions, while maintaining a uniform review timeline for all applicants. Option D. Reject the efficiency study's findings outright, deeming any discussion of processing times as irrelevant to the academic merit of applicants. Correct answer is A. Implement the processing priority system as proposed, arguing that it enhances overall administrative efficiency and reduces the university's operational burden. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential for misinterpreting or misapplying the findings of an efficiency study in the context of university admissions. The Akita Prefectural University Entrance Exam regulations, while not explicitly detailed here, would typically emphasize fairness, transparency, and adherence to established academic criteria. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the pursuit of institutional efficiency with the fundamental principles of equitable and merit-based selection, ensuring that no applicant is disadvantaged due to factors outside their academic merit or the university's stated admission policies. The correct approach involves a thorough and nuanced interpretation of the efficiency study's findings, integrating them with the existing admission guidelines without compromising the integrity of the selection process. This means understanding that efficiency gains should not lead to the exclusion of qualified candidates or the introduction of arbitrary selection criteria. Instead, the focus should be on streamlining administrative processes, improving resource allocation, or enhancing the applicant experience, all while upholding the university's commitment to academic excellence and equal opportunity as mandated by the spirit of Japanese higher education regulations. An incorrect approach would be to directly translate the efficiency study's recommendations into exclusionary admission criteria. For instance, if the study suggests that applicants from certain regions require more administrative resources for processing, using this as a basis to deprioritize or reject applicants from those regions would be a direct violation of principles of fairness and non-discrimination, likely contravening the underlying ethos of the Akita Prefectural University Entrance Exam regulations. Similarly, if the study highlights that certain academic backgrounds lead to higher dropout rates, using this as a sole criterion for admission would be ethically problematic and potentially discriminatory, as it fails to assess individual potential and may penalize students based on systemic factors or prior educational experiences beyond their control. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the study entirely, failing to leverage potential improvements that could benefit both the university and applicants, thus missing an opportunity to enhance the overall admission process within regulatory bounds. The professional decision-making process in such situations requires a careful assessment of the study's implications against the university's mission, values, and regulatory framework. Professionals must ask, does this recommendation uphold fairness? Does it align with academic meritocracy? Does it create any unintended biases? The goal is to identify opportunities for improvement that enhance efficiency without sacrificing equity or the fundamental principles of university admissions. Question 18. Comparative studies suggest that while universities strive for fairness in admissions, unique student circumstances can present ethical dilemmas for examination administrators. In the context of the Akita Prefectural University entrance exam, consider a scenario where a prospective student, who has demonstrated exceptional academic potential in prior schooling, is experiencing a temporary, documented personal hardship that they believe will significantly impair their performance on the day of the exam. The student's guardian has approached the examination administrator, requesting a minor, non-disruptive accommodation that is not explicitly listed as permissible in the official Akita Prefectural University entrance exam regulations. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines for the Akita Prefectural University entrance exam? Option A. Uphold the official examination regulations strictly, ensuring all candidates are assessed under identical conditions, and advise the guardian that any accommodations must be explicitly permitted by the published examination guidelines. Option B. Grant the requested accommodation, believing that it is a minor adjustment and that demonstrating empathy is paramount, even if it deviates from the explicit wording of the examination regulations. Option C. Propose a modification to the examination questions to better suit the student's current circumstances, arguing that this will provide a more accurate assessment of their potential. Option D. Advise the guardian to withdraw the student from the examination and reapply in a future year when their personal circumstances are more favorable, to avoid any potential issues with the examination process. The correct answer is A. Uphold the official examination regulations strictly, ensuring all candidates are assessed under identical conditions, and advise the guardian that any accommodations must be explicitly permitted by the published examination guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's personal circumstances and the university's established academic integrity policies. The university entrance exam for Akita Prefectural University is designed to assess a student's preparedness and aptitude through fair and standardized evaluation. Introducing external assistance or allowing deviations from the prescribed examination conditions would undermine the validity and fairness of the assessment for all candidates. The core of the challenge lies in balancing empathy for the student's situation with the imperative to uphold the integrity of the examination process, which is governed by the university's regulations. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the Akita Prefectural University's entrance examination regulations. This means ensuring that all candidates, including the student in question, are assessed under identical conditions, without any form of external aid or accommodation that is not explicitly permitted by the official examination guidelines. This approach is ethically and regulatorily sound because it upholds the principle of equal opportunity and fair competition, which are fundamental to any standardized examination. The university's regulations are designed to ensure that the assessment accurately reflects each student's individual merit and preparedness, thereby maintaining the credibility of the university's admissions process. Deviating from these regulations, even with good intentions, would compromise the fairness of the exam and could lead to accusations of bias or preferential treatment. An incorrect approach would be to allow the student to receive assistance during the examination. This directly violates the Akita Prefectural University's entrance examination regulations, which mandate independent work and prohibit any form of external help. Such an action would be ethically unsound, as it creates an unfair advantage for one student over others, undermining the principle of meritocracy. Another incorrect approach would be to modify the examination questions or format specifically for this student. This also contravenes the established regulations and compromises the standardization of the exam, making it impossible to compare results fairly across all candidates. Furthermore, attempting to interpret the regulations to allow for such accommodations, without explicit provision in the official guidelines, is a failure of professional judgment and adherence to established rules. A professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding and strict adherence to the official regulations of the Akita Prefectural University Entrance Examination. When faced with a situation that appears to warrant special consideration, the professional's first step should be to consult the official examination guidelines and policies. If the guidelines do not explicitly permit the requested accommodation, then the default position must be to uphold the existing rules to ensure fairness and integrity. Any perceived hardship or unique circumstance should be addressed through established university support channels that operate outside the direct administration of the entrance examination itself, such as post-admission academic support services, rather than by compromising the integrity of the admission process. Question 19. Compliance review shows that a prospective student applying to Akita Prefectural University has listed participation in a regional academic competition that they did not fully complete, implying a higher level of involvement and achievement than was actually attained. The student's overall academic record is strong, but this particular extracurricular activity is highlighted in their personal statement. What is the most ethically sound course of action for the student regarding this information on their application? Option A. Contact the university admissions office and request guidance on how to best represent their involvement in the competition, providing all details of their participation. Option B. Correct the personal statement to accurately reflect the extent of their participation and any achievements in the regional academic competition, ensuring full transparency. Option C. Proceed with the application as is, assuming the admissions committee will understand that participation implies some level of involvement, even if not fully completed. Option D. Remove any mention of the regional academic competition from the application materials to avoid any potential misinterpretation. Correct answer is B. Correct the personal statement to accurately reflect the extent of their participation and any achievements in the regional academic competition, ensuring full transparency. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge for a prospective student applying to Akita Prefectural University. The core issue revolves around the integrity of the application process and the ethical implications of misrepresenting qualifications. The university's entrance examination regulations, while not explicitly detailed here, are presumed to uphold principles of fairness, honesty, and meritocracy. Misleading the admissions committee undermines these fundamental principles and can lead to unfair advantages for the applicant and disadvantages for other deserving candidates. The correct approach involves complete transparency and honesty regarding academic achievements and any extracurricular activities that may be relevant to the application. This aligns with the ethical expectations of academic institutions and the broader societal value placed on integrity. By truthfully presenting their qualifications, the applicant respects the university's admission standards and demonstrates the character expected of its students. An incorrect approach would be to embellish or fabricate details on the application. This constitutes academic dishonesty and a breach of trust with the university. Such misrepresentation, if discovered, would not only lead to the rejection of the application, but could also result in future academic repercussions, such as being barred from applying to other institutions. Another incorrect approach would be to omit relevant information that, while not explicitly false, creates a misleading impression of the applicant's capabilities or experiences. This can be seen as a form of deception, as it intentionally withholds information that could influence the admissions committee's decision. The professional decision-making process for such situations requires a commitment to honesty and a thorough understanding of the application requirements. Applicants should carefully review all instructions and guidelines provided by the university. If there is any ambiguity or uncertainty about what information to include or how to present it, it is always best to seek clarification from the admissions office. Prioritizing integrity over perceived advantage is paramount in academic and professional pursuits. Question 20. Regulatory review indicates that Akita Prefectural University's admissions guidelines for the upcoming academic year emphasize the accurate reporting of all prior academic achievements. A prospective applicant has completed several courses at different institutions, some of which were not part of a formal degree program, and received grades that are not reflected on their primary academic transcript. The applicant is unsure whether these additional courses need to be declared. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical expectations for this university entrance exam? Option A. The applicant should include all coursework completed at any institution, regardless of its academic standing or relevance, to ensure full disclosure, even if it means submitting multiple transcripts and grade reports that may not be explicitly requested. Option B. The applicant should only submit the primary academic transcript from their most recent formal educational institution, assuming that any other coursework is not relevant for the university's evaluation. Option C. The applicant should consult with friends who have previously applied to Akita Prefectural University to understand their interpretation of the prior academic achievements requirement and follow their advice on what to submit. Option D. The applicant should meticulously review the Akita Prefectural University Admissions Handbook, paying close attention to sections detailing the submission of academic records and the definition of prior academic achievements. If any ambiguity remains regarding the inclusion of non-degree courses or courses with unreflected grades, the applicant should contact the Akita Prefectural University Admissions Office directly for clarification before submitting their application. The correct answer is D. The applicant should meticulously review the Akita Prefectural University Admissions Handbook, paying close attention to sections detailing the submission of academic records and the definition of prior academic achievements. If any ambiguity remains regarding the inclusion of non-degree courses or courses with unreflected grades, the applicant should contact the Akita Prefectural University Admissions Office directly for clarification before submitting their application. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge for prospective students applying to Akita Prefectural University, requiring them to navigate the university's specific admission regulations and demonstrate an understanding of academic integrity. The core difficulty lies in interpreting the nuances of the university's policies regarding prior academic work and ensuring that their application accurately reflects their qualifications without misrepresenting their academic history. Careful judgment is required to avoid any misinterpretation or omission that could lead to disqualification. The correct approach involves a thorough review of Akita Prefectural University's official admissions guidelines, specifically focusing on sections pertaining to the submission of academic transcripts and the declaration of previous coursework. This approach is correct because it directly adheres to the university's stated requirements, demonstrating a commitment to transparency and honesty in the application process. By seeking clarification from the admissions office if any aspect of the regulations is unclear, the applicant proactively ensures compliance and avoids potential misunderstandings, aligning with the ethical principle of academic integrity expected by educational institutions. An incorrect approach would be to assume that all prior academic work, regardless of its relevance or academic standing, must be included without careful consideration of the university's specific instructions. This is incorrect because it fails to acknowledge that universities often have specific criteria for what constitutes relevant prior learning for admission purposes. Another incorrect approach would be to selectively omit coursework that the applicant believes might negatively impact their application, without consulting the university's policy on such matters. This is incorrect as it constitutes a misrepresentation of academic history, violating the fundamental principle of honesty in academic applications and potentially leading to severe consequences, including the invalidation of the application or admission. A further incorrect approach would be to rely on informal advice from peers or online forums regarding the interpretation of admission requirements, rather than consulting the official university documentation. This is incorrect because it introduces the risk of misinformation and deviates from the authoritative source of information, undermining the applicant's diligence and commitment to following established procedures. Professionals in academic admissions, and by extension, applicants to universities, should employ a decision-making process that prioritizes direct consultation of official guidelines, seeks clarification when needed, and maintains absolute transparency in all submitted information. This framework ensures adherence to regulatory requirements and upholds ethical standards.